8:30, we like to start the program so everybody can get back to their practices. Excuse me, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold, so if you need me to repeat myself, we can do that again after this and we can go through the whole thing. So, one big change from last year to this year, I have to wear glasses, so if I miss something, this is all new to me. But as you players may know, this is one of the oldest traditions that these two communities are involved in, seniors from both Derby and Shelton. This event dates back to the late 1930s, and it's been a holiday fixture for decades. At one time, it's the Kiwanis Club took the team, the seniors, to Yankee Stadium to see a game and gave them a steak dinner. Sorry guys, some traditions need to be changed. Over time, this event has evolved into what it is today. I personally can remember going to Raps not too long ago, for a steak dinner and lunch when I was a senior at Derby High School, just a few short years ago. Now I have the honor the last few years to be able to be the master of ceremonies for this wonderful and inspirational event. There's not too many communities throughout the state of Connecticut that actually put something this on. You know, as you get older and you see that, you understand what a truly, truly special town and area that you guys live in. You know, again, as you get older, you really can appreciate, you know, the magnitude of this event. This year is the 106th game between these two squads. The time frame starts in 1905 with the annual Thanksgiving Day game starting in 1922. The first counting game in this friendly rivalry was played in November 7th, 1905, 112 years ago at the Derby Meadows. Derby Meadows, I think, was down around Old Sullivan Island, where now we have the Riverwalk. And that used to flood, and that field, you know, I guess, wasn't the best of shape. But Derby won that game 27-0. The article in the Evening Sentinel that I read mentioned that this was Shelton High School's first game ever in their program on November 7th, 1905. There was actually a second game played that year between Derby and Shelton, and it said Derby played Shelton Juniors at the Derby Meadows. And that year Derby played 7 games, going 6-0 with a tie to Wallingford High School. Unfortunately, while I was doing all my research in the 1905 game, I couldn't find anyone alive from those teams to talk about the game. I know, it's hard to believe, especially all my connections at the cemetery. I hope you're as excited as I am here today. Late laugh. I hope you're excited as I am today. When I joined Rotary, the first thing I did, the guys that brought me in the Rotary years ago, the first thing I asked is, hey, do we still do this? You know, so I really, you know, and they're like, oh yeah, and you know, that's what I look forward to is this event every year, and still, I look forward to it every year. The tradition of this game has carried well into the past, throughout the valley, through generations of families. There are families that could say their fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers and uncles and great-uncles, and they played for different teams, Shelton, Derby, Shelton. You know, and it's happened in my family. Half my family has played for Shelton, the other half of my family has played for Derby, and it really is some good bantering back and forth around the Thanksgiving Day table. At this time, I'd like to just mention a few of our head table and people that are distinguished guests that are here before I get into some history down memory lane. I know Sylvia mentioned a little bit, but from Shelton, Shelton Superintendent, Dr. Chris Gloria. Shelton Headmaster, Dr. Beth Smith. And Athletic Director, John Nixie. And then, of course, the Shelton head football coach, Jeff Roy. And Jeff will introduce the rest of his staff and players shortly. And from Derby, the Derby Mayor, Anita Dugato. Derby Superintendent, Dr. Matthew Conway Jr. Derby Principal, Martin Pascal. And Derby Athletic Director, Rachel Caggiano. And Derby Head Coach, George French. I'd also like to give a special welcome to Shelton former football coach Tony Branco. He's designer of the trophy you see here, also the last few trophies that we're giving out to the winning team. The team that holds the trophy for that year in their showcase after winning. But after a team accumulates 10 wins, 10 points, that trophy is retired, and then Tony needs to design a new one, right? So I'd like to thank Tony Branco for everything he's done. So let me just give you a few highlights, and then I'm going to ask Coach Roy to step up and introduce his players. So in 1907, we're going to go through every 10 years in the sevens. There was no game played by Derby and Shelton. There was actually 2 games played on that day, and Derby played Derby Alumni. And Derby Alumni being old and not too well, Derby won. And then there was a Derby Westsiders team that played in the Ansonia Pioneer team. It was almost like it's a semi-pro team. But you know what I did find out is, unlike we always said, if you lose, you eat crow, you win, you eat turkey. Actually, if you didn't eat turkey on that day, you ate pork. And then, you know, back in 1907, Shelton actually was referred to as a borough and not a town or a city. In 1917, there also was no Thanksgiving Day game played between Derby and Shelton, but hence now Shelton's known as a city in 1917. So Shelton's doing well, they keep on moving up. In 1927, there was 6,000 people that watched the game during a driving rainstorm. It proves that we have the best fans, because Ansonia canceled their game because they were afraid of the rain. And they said Shelton used a lot of trick plays in that game, but Derby had a speedy backfield, and Derby won 27-6. Actually, and it also mentioned that was the Shelton's worst defeat since 1908. In 1937, there was 5,000 fans that watched a winless Shelton Galloping Gales team coached by Lou Guerri against the Houston Champ Derby team coached by Leo F. Ryan. They held them to 14 points. So it looks like they're going to pull out a win, but unfortunately their offense didn't get on track that day, and Derby won on a nice weather day. In 1947, now we're getting closer to modern times, for the 34th meeting between the two schools, there was 8,000 fans that packed the stadium. The story goes that they looked on the field and it looked like a sea of mud. So Shelton at that time was coached by Ed Finn, and they capitalized on fumbles and the play of talented Tom Simonetti, which happens to be my uncle, who scored 4 times with 2 being called back on clipping, but Shelton ended up beating Derby, which was coached by Leo F. Ryan, 13-6. Brings us up to 1957, and now it was again a good weather day, and it was the largest crowd in years. Shelton, coached by Ed Finn, they scored first, and Derby had a young coach, Mike Mikulais, who they ran off 24 unanswered points to not only win the game, but cause a 3-way tie in the losing league with Shelton and East Haven. So yeah, these two teams were always vying for the league title and the league and dominance in the league. So at this time, I'd like to call up Coach Jeff Roy, who will introduce his players and his team.
First off, I'd like to thank the Rotary Club for having us again. This is a fantastic event. I look forward to coming here every year. I've been coming here for a lot of years. I'd like to also thank my administration for their support, starting off with my athletic director, John Niski. Thank you. Headmaster of Shelton High School, Dr. Smith, and the superintendent of Shelton Schools, Dr. Chris Coulette. Thank you. At this point, I'm going to introduce my assistant coaches. I have 3 assistants here with me today. Our offensive coordinator has done an awesome job with the offense, and he also did a great job filling in for me when I had my injury as the assistant head coach, Coach Mike DeFelice. Our defensive line coach, who was also a Derby police officer, as you can see, but he's more than a defensive line coach. He does an awesome job with the D-line and breaking down film and game planning. He's like my right-hand man on defense, our D-line coach, Justin Stanko. And our freshman coach, who's talked about before, he's been involved in this football game. He used to be the head coach at Shelton, Coach Tony Branco. Before I introduce my seniors, I would just personally like to thank them for all their hard work and dedication to the Shelton football program. As all of you know, it's not easy to be a football player, and we asked a lot out of these kids, and these kids stuck with our program for the last 4 years. And I was talking to one of them the other day, and they were 2-8 as freshmen. And right now they stand at 8-1 and SEC champions, so that's a long way to go, and you guys deserve everything you get. Great job, great hard work for my seniors. So starting off in alphabetical order, linebacker Ian Badalato. Defense back Alex Brown. Wide receiver, defense back Nick Fine. Offensive lineman Tim Haddon. Linebacker, special teams specialist, Tim Peters. Wide receiver, Hassan Sarat. I always get that name wrong. Hold on, let me. Sarasu. Offensive lineman, Gerald Sorensen. Running back, Trey Sylvester. And now our 4 captains who've done a tremendous job this year leading our football team. All SEC defensive end captain, Mike Casanelli. All SEC offensive lineman, Eddie Radzian. All SEC defensive line, Jared Witkowski. And our starting center, Captain Eric Zeleny. In closing, again, thanks for having us, and I'd like to wish everybody a happy and healthy Thanksgiving, and let's have a great day on Thursday. Thank you. All right, I'll back up. At this point, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker from Shelton, Dr. Klauser. I know him very well. He was a 2-sport standout at Shelton High School in both football and basketball in the mid to late 90s. I had the pleasure of coaching him. He decided to pursue a career as an orthopedic surgeon and received a bachelor's degree in science in pre-med from the University of Michigan. Dr. Klauser went on to receive a medical degree from Albany Medical College, winning the Alumni Award for Excellence in Orthopedics. Following completion of his residency, he was selected to become a sports medicine fellow under the tutelage of world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews. His team physician experience included the Toronto Blue Jays, Tampa Bay Rays, Washington Nationals, Auburn University, among others. Dr. Klauser now resides in Shelton with his wife and 2 kids, and we're very lucky to have him as both our team doctors and have him back in our area. He's done a lot of surgeries and medical stuff on the coaches and the players and everybody in this area. So it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, Dr. Jeff Klauser.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank the Derby-Shelton Rotary Club for inviting me to speak today. It's an honor to be able to speak in front of you guys. A lot of the people in this room really helped shape my future back when I was in these seats. 20 years ago, believe it or not. To this day, 1997, I was a senior sitting in these very seats. You guys all seem to be in good moods. When I was in these seats, I was pretty pissed out there. I was in a bad mood. We were having a good year that year. I was this young little angry 17-year-old defensive end and tight end for Shelton. We were going early on in the season. We were 6-0. We were rolling through teams. I think we went like 3-4 games without even getting a single point scored on us. So things looked pretty good. We were definitely looking forward towards playing the state championship. When Coach Steve Felice played a couple years before in 1995, we had won a state championship. So I was a little sophomore, a little kid still at that time. So I didn't really feel like that was my win. So as a senior, I was really looking forward to, all right, we're gonna run the show and really get another win, and I was going to be proud to get that win. But unfortunately, we never made the playoffs. After our 6th win, we were 6-0. As the game was winding down, our senior quarterback Jay Wilson was still in the game, which is up for debate why he didn't get pulled when we clearly won the game. But anyway, he's still in the game, and I still remember this play like it was yesterday. Back then, I don't really remember too many plays from day in, day out. That was before modern day concussion protocol, so I think I was playing with my bell rung for a couple weeks in there. But this one play in particular stands out to me. It was pro formation, counter left, boot naked. So Jay's supposed to just really dump the ball to me once I kind of rolled out to the flats and got wide open, ran for a first down, and maybe even a touchdown. But anyway, Jay holds on to the ball, he pump fakes, he looks at me. I can remember him standing from me to you. We're looking at each other in the eyes, I'm wide open, I'm doing this. And Jay does this, and he just holds on to it for whatever reason. He gets tackled out of bounds, rolls up onto the front of his foot. And Jay usually can take a hit. He's one of these kids that you get hit, he might cry a little bit, but he'd get up and get back to the field and find us in a huddle. But this time Jay didn't get back up. Jay was on the ground, he was writhing in pain. And he wasn't able to get back and come back to the game. He wasn't even able to get back to the team for most of the rest of the season. He ended up sustaining what I later would learn is called a turf toe injury. And it sounds like not a big deal, just a sprained big toe. But this is an injury that unfortunately you can't run, you can't push off for several weeks or even months when these are severe. So Jay wasn't able to come back in the game. Our backup quarterback wasn't ready for the big time. And our backup was Dan Orlovsky, who was still about 14 years old at the time. He was about 5'8", 150 pounds soaking wet, 50 nickels in his pocket. So, so after that, we didn't really have the offensive prowess to really start scoring points again. We used to roll teams, and once Jay went out and our backup was in there, they just kind of stacked the boxers. Sometimes it looked like 15 guys on the defensive line that were trying to go and score points on. So we ended up losing 3 games in a row after that. It was to Cheshire, we lost to West Haven, and believe it or not, we lost to Amity, which is, I think, the last time we lost to Amity, which was 20 years ago. So after that, for me, that really kind of inspired me to start looking into the career of sports medicine. I always knew I wanted to be a physician, but for me, football was life. It was the end all and be all. If we weren't winning, if we weren't having a perfect season, it was just absolute failure to me. So football, I always knew I wanted to be a part of football as I grew up, and if I could somehow tie a medical career into football, then it was perfect for me. So it was actually through our loss of our quarterback and the toll it took on our team that really inspired me. Different options, different treatments that you can give to a player can turn a huge season-ending injury into a 2-week speed bump. I mean, you can take someone that may have an injury for the rest of their life that can impact them going on for the rest of their life, but if you treat them right early on, they may be just a distant memory. They may never have a problem going ahead in their future. So, that inspired me to get into a career of orthopedic surgery. So after high school, I spent 14 years of my life. It was 4 years of undergrad at Michigan, like Coach Roy was saying. I went to Albany Med up in upstate New York, and then 5 years of orthopedic surgery residency. And then finally last year, I got my lucky break. I was accepted into a fellowship with Dr. James Andrews, who a lot of you guys probably know if you watch ESPN. He always treats the big name athletes. So I got to spend a year with him, and every day was kind of the who's who of who's on ESPN. We'd actually watch ESPN, learn about an injury, we start laughing because we see him on the schedule the next day. So, I saw the who's who in the major league. We had first round fantasy football draft picks who were our patients that I was learning how to operate on, believe it or not. or there's these NBA phenoms that we saw from day to day. So, you know, learning that experience was great, but the good thing about Dr. Andrews was, you know, he was just a normal, regular guy. You know, he treated whether you were Peyton Manning or you were the kid that, you know, goes to the local high school and couldn't even start on your team as a you know, it's the junior or senior, treated them all the same. Half the players we saw were local kids that their parents didn't have insurance, but he took them anyway. So that really taught me to be humble, to value community, and you know, that's when I started feeling, all right, it's time for me to start thinking about what's important to me. And this has always been my home. You know, between, you know, playing for Shelton and really having respect for this rivalry, this community, it really sparked an interest, and it made me start thinking about, you know, where am I going to be in the future, and end up choosing coming back here to treat you guys. It really, you know, as a high school athlete, it was important to us to get the best care, and you know, after I did my training, I thought, well, you know, what can I do to give back to the community and also be able to make a nice life and family for myself back home. So that brought me back here. But back to that 17-year-old angry kid from 20 years ago. You know, after those 3 losses, the only way for us to salvage our season was to beat Derby. You know, back then, again, you guys may feel the same way, but we were a little brainwashed. You know, we look at the Derby kids, and they were the enemy, they were evil. You know, the Red Raiders stood between us and salvaging that season. So, you know, I wanted nothing more than a Gales victory, win that silver turkey, and, you know, beat up on George French, who was lying up across from me. You know, his job was to block me as I was going to kill their quarterback, so he had a pretty arduous task because I was a little bit bigger than him back then. We've even the scales as time has gone, but, you know, so one of those goals was achieved. We ended up winning 7-0 in a hard-fought defensive battle. Our tailback, Mark Novak, he ended up winning a silver turkey because he had one long run for like 40 yards, despite my 5-6 tackles for a loss, a couple sacks, a couple QB hurries. I almost had a pick 6, which I think he threw. I had my hands on it, got it knocked out of my hands, but that would have sealed me that. Whatever. And then that other goal to kill Coach French, that's still up for debate. You know, we talk about this a lot. Me and George, I get to see him still quite a bit. We hang out and talk about it. He's got a picture, he says, showing me kind of running him over as I'm going towards his quarterback. He's holding me on his way down.
No flag thrown.
No flag thrown. He's never shown me that picture. I think he probably buried it in his backyard. But that's what's so great about this game in particular, in this rivalry. So we went from mortal enemies to lifelong friends. As soon as that final whistle is blown, you guys are going to be friends for the rest of your lives. You know, we're really just kind of separated by a river, but we're all really the same people when it comes down to it. So when I finished my training, George was one of the first guys I called. I said, look, you know, do you need any help taking care of your players? And George took me in with open arms, and before he knew it, but the first team I had the pleasure of taking care of was Derby. It was my rival, you know, 20 years ago. So I've been very fortunate to be able to treat the Derby players, and as time has gone on, now Shelton's my team as well, so I've been able to treat players from both sides of the river. As I look around, I see at least 3 or 4 of you guys that have unfortunately spent some time in my operating room. But I gotta tell you, it gives me great pride to be able to see you guys back on the field and really doing what you guys love. You're competing, you're working hard, and you're able to get out there and really live your life. You're gonna be able to look back in those years with fond memories, and you know, it's nice for me to be able to be a part of that. And you know, if I was able to get you out there for 1 more game or 2 more plays more than you could, if it wasn't for me, it really makes me really proud. The game of football will prepare you for life. It'll teach you to deal with adversity. It'll teach you the value of hard work. And in my case, inspired me to pursue a career in caring for injured athletes. And now I get to continue to be a part of that by doing my best to get players from both sides safely back on the field as quickly as possible. Like I said, I've always had a profound respect for the game, this rivalry, and this community. And I thank you all for giving me the opportunity to fulfill my dreams and keep taking care of you guys. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, Doc. You know, I know the guy who gives out the silver turkey back then. It sounds like you were petitioning to maybe we can relook at that day. So, but stick around. Do you work on aging athletes? So to finish down memory lane, now we're at 1967. The rain postponed that game, so I guess it must have been really a torrential downpour because, you know, we're tough, we play in the rain. And it was still raining on Saturday. So the Derby, the Derby Public Works Department had to go to all of the local mills in town, and they get all the sawdust they can get their hands on, and that's what they threw on the field in '67 so they could play, because I guess they didn't have that turf stuff yet. So that's how they played the game in 1967. Shelton, who was coached by John Doherty at the time, was actually held scoreless for the first time all season and lost to Derby, who head coach was Bill McAllister, who eventually went on to be the legendary Ansonia coach. And the score was 26-0. In 1977, there was 10,000 fans that watched an epic defensive battle. It was between legendary coach Lou DeFilippo from Derby Red Raiders and young Shelton head coach Ray Carliglio, who was once an assistant at Derby. Shelton prevailed on that day 3-0. So it was, now in 1987, getting closer to where you guys played, both teams were 8-1, and they were both playing for a state tournament bid and the Housatonic Championship. With 6,000 fans in the seats, Derby High School, who now was coached by Charlie DeCenzo, was playing Shelton, who was now coached by Bob Riggio. With the help of 8 turnovers that day, Derby won, and Charlie, Coach DeCenzo, won his first game against Shelton 33-0. The way the state tournament was done back then, even though both teams were 9-1 and 8-2, unfortunately neither of them made the state tournament, which they would have today. 1997, I believe that's when you played, right? 5,000 fans watched you guys play that day. And it was a back and forth battle between the 20-yard lines. And you're right, in the third quarter, your running back ran off a 44-yard run, breaking about 4 tackles, the paper said. And Joe Bonanto, who was the head coach of Shelton, helped the Scales win 7-0 against John Oko's Derby Red Raiders. In 2007, with Shelton ranked 9th in the state, heading towards the state playoff game, Shelton head coach now is Jeff Roy. They need a big first half to not allow Derby to stay in the game, which they got. And they scored 34 points in the first half, which quieted Derby's home crowd. And then, but in the second half, Derby, they played to a 14-14 tie. And Derby at that time was coached by now Carmen DeCenzo. And Shelton won that day 49-14. At this time, I'd like to call up the Derby High School head coach, who is going to introduce his players and coaches, George French.
Thank you, Ed. First off, like Dr. Clouser said, he had a fantastic game in 1997. It was not holding. I have the picture. I will show you. All right, but it was a great game, and it was a great game in the history of this this rivalry. So, first off, I want to thank, as Jeff did earlier, the Derby-Shelton Rotary Club for putting on this event. It's a wonderful event, and we're very thankful to have you guys put this up every year. So, thank you. Also, like to thank Grant's Catering and the Russian Lodge for the lovely meal we had and for housing us today. It was an excellent job. Special thank you, Mayor Dugato, for coming today. Thank you for your service, and I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you. Thank you to my administrators, first Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Conway, our principal, Martin Pascal, and my assistant principal / AD / personal psychologist, Rachel Cacciano. I'd also like to thank our cheerleaders and Rebecca and Bree once again for all the work you do during the year, setting up these kids' lockers and supporting us. Thank you all. I have 2 coaches that happen to be teachers in the building, and not being a teacher, it can make it real hard. And especially with these guys in the building, they do a lot of great things for me. They make sure they patrol the hallways, they make sure the kids stay in line, and I really appreciate what you guys do for me. First off, my offensive line, defensive line, Dave Chavarella. And my wide receiver and defensive back coach, Steve Boehner. I'd also like to special thank Shelton High School. This year we're going to be putting in a new football field, a whole new complex, and they housed us while all the drilling was going on. So we really appreciate you guys coming forward and helping us with this. So thank you very much, guys. My seniors, first and foremost, I want to thank you boys. You guys gave me 110% effort every day. We ask a lot of you guys being Derby High School athletes. You got to play both ways. You got to play 3 sports in our high school. You got to do a lot of things. So I admire your hard work, and I thank you for everything that you put forth for Derby High School, our town, and for me. So thank you, boys. First off, offensive line and linebacker, Matt Alumni. Offensive line and defensive line, Andres Garcia. This is one of my favorites. Quarterback, running back, guard, wide receiver, linebacker, and this week, pretty much all the positions, Tyreek Evans-Purdy. Captain, running back, linebacker, Zaire Flowers. Captain, wide receiver, defensive back, Nick Pacheco. Captain, offensive line, defensive line, Pat Natale. Captain, offensive line, defensive line, Anthony Sloan. Before I recognize my guest speaker, I just want to again thank everybody. I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Derby's guest speaker is a 2012 graduate of Derby High School. He was one of my first athletes as a coach. He came in, he was a junior in my first year as head coach, and he was a special player. He was one of my favorites to watch. I was very hard on this gentleman, and this gentleman, you know, he rose up every day. He was the quintessential leader of my program during my early years. He was a 2011 captain. He was a 2-time All-NVL selection at quarterback. He was a All-State selection at quarterback. He happened to be the 2011 Silver Turkey Award winner. We lost a valiant game, but he was the best player on the field that day. He's a tireless worker with a team-first attitude, and honestly, he's one of my favorite boys to ever watch. And I love watching him progress in life right now because he's just a special young man. Hopefully after today we can find some kind of way to get him a rotation with Dr. Klauser. He's got a bachelor's in health science from Bridgeport, and right now he is working on his master's. He's at PA school at University of Bridgeport. Please welcome Raymond Kreiger.
Good afternoon, everybody. First, I'd like to thank Coach French for inviting me to speak today. It's an honor to be here. I'd also like to thank the Derby-Shelton Rotary Club for hosting this event. I feel as if I was sitting in these seats waiting to play this game for the final time just a few years ago. My name is Ray Kreiger. I'm a proud graduate of the Derby High School class of 2012. Derby, as most of you know, is a very small school. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to be a varsity athlete in football, baseball, and basketball early in my high school career. My career started in August of my freshman year. I was practicing freshman football on a field near the varsity field. And I watched a kid come running down this hill, and he ran up to our freshman coach and said, "Listen, whoever the freshman quarterback is, we need him to run back up to the varsity field right now. Coach is pissed." I was fresh out of 8th grade, a whopping 5'8", 145-pound, 14-year-old freshman, and I was face-to-face with our varsity head coach. Our varsity head coach at the time was this guy named Carmen DeCenzo. So Coach Carmen and Coach French came up to me real frantic and said, Kreiger, you're the next guy in. Throw the ball. I don't care who it's to. Just complete the pass. So I was like, all right, I'll complete a pass. So I did just that. Completed some passes until he said, thanks a lot, Ray. You can go back down to practice now. So as I was walking down, I was thinking to myself, ah, man, I really hope I didn't blow this. Later that day, my freshman coach got a call from Coach French, and he wanted me to come to every varsity practice from here on out. When I got the phone call, I was really proud of myself and happy to receive such an opportunity. 4 games into the season of my freshman year, I was named the starting quarterback, and I was really excited. After the excitement sat in, I was overcome with the realization of the responsibility that came with playing such a critical position. I was leaving my friends and everyone that I ever played with growing up to be a part of a team in which most kids were 4 years older than me. And who knew if they would even listen to me or even trust me. But those kids, they really protected me, trusted me, and relied on me to lead their team. This was the first time I'd ever been exposed to that type of camaraderie. That year was also my first Derby-Shelton Thanksgiving Day game. I was thrilled to play in such a great rivalry that my parents took me to see when I was a little kid. And as my career progressed, I learned from some of the mistakes that I made early on. Obviously, we didn't win any of those games, so I learned from the mistakes I made. Most of the games were pretty one-sided, but as I progressed in my career, the games became a lot more competitive. So my junior and senior year, they were 2 of the most exciting games and physical games that I had ever played in. Like I said, unfortunately, we didn't win one of those Thanksgiving Day games. But the older I got, the more apparent it became that numbers are numbers, and no one can argue that. But no one understands the amount of hard work, dedication, and passion that comes with being a part of a football team. Nobody has been able to quantify that yet. That's the message I'd like to paint for you guys today. Everyone has their own personal experiences, touchdowns they've scored, tackles they've made, and games they've won. But we are all here today, brought together by one game, and that's football. Have you ever actually sat down and thought about what it means to be a football player? It's not just about putting seeds. It's much, much more than that. Anyone who's ever played knows the amount of training hours, practices in the scorching heat, or frigid cold, or getting chewed out for making some mistake in practices by your coaches. Listen, everybody's been there. You guys have definitely been there, and you guys for sure have been there. Being a part of a sport, that means you're going to leave with lifelong lessons, friendship, and memories that no one can ever take away from you. Whether you could choose to pursue a sport at the next level or not, just remember football will always be a part of your life moving forward. I didn't realize that at first, because it was hard for me to imagine a life without playing football. When I was sitting in your shoes this time 5 years ago, this upcoming game was the most exciting thing happening in my life at the time. For me and many players, my final senior year game was the last time I was ever going to put on a helmet and play this great sport. I'm here to tell you from a guy who loved playing just as much as anybody, you're truly going to miss it. But if you channel everything you've learned, everything that got you to where you are today, the best is yet to come. Everyone in this room is at a huge advantage. Playing football has given all of you the tools to succeed in the future. Life skills like endless hard work, passion, teamwork, accepting criticism, compromise, just to name a few. These are priceless skills that will carry you through any difficult situation you may face. I was able to use those skills to play 4 years of college sports. I played baseball at Central Connecticut State University and baseball at the University of Bridgeport. I completed my college degree, and I entered graduate school this year to become a physician assistant. Every single one of you is going to have a different path. But if I can instill in you one message, it is to take everything that football has taught you and channel it into something that you're passionate about. The world is in front of you, and what our coach at Derby, Coach French, always preaches, you're the next guy in. And remember, you guys are all going to be the next guys in at some point, whether on the field or in life. So just a couple closing remarks. I just want to say good luck to everybody at this game on Thanksgiving morning. This is the last time you're ever going to be a part of this historic rivalry. If I can leave you with some advice, leave it all on the field. Make your school, town, family, and friends very proud. Enjoy every second of it. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today.
forgot the cheerleaders who we never want to forget. I don't want to throw Mr. Nitzke under the bus, but he usually announces the cheer. Our senior cheerleaders here today. Captain, Sienna Buchanan. Captain, Haley Bombala. Senior Hannah Pistachio. And Senior Brianna Krenchman.
Rebecca, you're on.
We have two senior captains with us today, Haley Gramatica.
Thank you, guys. Very inspirational, which is what this is all about. I'd like to leave all you players one last minute of advice. All the tradition that goes into this game, from all your former players, have now entrusted this tradition with you to carry this on to the best of your ability. Win or lose, you have an obligation not only to yourselves, not only to your coaches, but to every player who has gone before you, for you to do everything in your power to carry on this tradition. You must leave everything on the field when you play on Thursday. For many of you, this will be your last football game. Win or lose, if you give it your best, no one can take that away from you. And you've heard that today from your former players. Take away from this game and your high school career all the motivation that you have used to overcome all the adversity and August practices. And if you do that, you'll be winners in life. Good luck, boys. And thank you and everyone for attending today.